For my rationale, I have worked in SEND schools for almost 5 years. Over those 5 years, I have formed my opinions on how the national curriculum works or doesn't work for students with SEND and complex needs. In my last report on curriculum, policy and practice, I thought a lot about how appropriate the national curriculum was for SEND students. For my small research project, I wanted to pose the question to other teaching staff in SEND schools. How do I move it on? Help. I don't know how to do it. Kate, I'm stuck. So why the government believes that the national curriculum is suitable for SEND schools? Because it provides a standardised framework intended to ensure a baseline of education for all students, including those with special educational needs and disabilities. They may argue that a consistent curriculum helps set clear expectations and supports inclusive education practices, aiming to provide an education that addresses a broad range of learning needs. So what do we get for the national curriculum? Accessible learning materials, providing materials in various formats such as audio, large print to accommodate different learning styles. Specialised instructions offering teaching methods that cater to individualised learning styles and pace. Assistive technologies, employing tools and technologies that assist students in their learning, such as screen readers, speech-to-text software or communication devices. Qualified support staff having trained professionals such as specialised education teachers, speech therapists or occupational therapists to provide targeted inclusivity, understanding and acceptance and reducing stigma and social integration. Regular assessment and monitoring, collaboration with parents, physical accessibility and emotional and social support. The assessment P scales I'd like to talk about a bit more later on, but why could the national curriculum be perceived as not being beneficial? The national curriculum may be perceived as not being beneficial for SEND students due to its potentially limiting flexibility and one-size-fits-all approach, which may not adequately address the diverse needs of students with special educational needs and disabilities. People argue that a more personalised and adaptable curriculum is necessary to cater to the unique learning requirements of students in SEND. So what the national curriculum doesn't think about is the basic needs of our children. Meeting the basic needs of our students is essential for their overall well-being and educational success. Many of our students arrive at school already in a heightened state due to home life or the journey to school. They need the basic things such as food, water, a safe space, someone to talk to, sensory needs met or medical needs met to be able to function. The national curriculum does not take this into consideration. Research methods, the first thing I did was create a survey of 7 questions aimed at teachers in SEND schools. The quantitative data shows I had responses from 80% of my target audience, having sent out 15 surveys with 12 replies. The surveys were all anonymous unless consent was given for their names to be added for further research. I've added in the link for the Survey Monkey so that anyone who wishes to can go and have a look at the rest of the questions. For the first question, do you think the national curriculum is suitable for special educational needs? And as you can see from the response, 100% said no, it was not suitable. So my second question, I wanted to know why they thought this. So for survey question 2, what are the main challenges you face when implementing the national curriculum in special educational needs? So as you can see, a lot of them had a common thread. Too rigid and expectations beyond capabilities. Too rigid needs to be more practical. Lack of resources and high expectations. Pitch too high, not enough focus on life skills. Needs to be heavily adapted, needs to be more flexible. Insufficient consideration for more complex learners. Too rigid, needs to be more practical. Lack of options and practical based qualifications. Assessing students with SEND needs adapting to add in focus on other areas such as engagement and social skills. This one made me think a lot about how we assess our students, and as I mentioned earlier, we use P scales to assess our students. So I wanted to know whether teaching staff thought that the P scales assessment was still appropriate. Second research method, I held 4 interviews. I chose a range of different backgrounds to give me the qualitative data. This included a member of SLT, 2 teachers from complex needs and a standard teacher. I asked the question in the interview, do you feel P scales are still a relevant way to assess students in a SEND school? These are some of the answers that I was given. It is difficult to assess children using P scales. Sometimes their progress isn't always linear, and there are other areas that need to be considered with SEND pupils, social skills, etc. Other things also needed to be considered to capture progress beyond just academic achievement. Some elements of the P scales can be useful, but the engagement model is more appropriate for lower level learners. Any assessment system has to be relevant for each school and the learners, so it needs to include the engagement model to higher level learners. So this made me look into my secondary research. Unfortunately, there wasn't a lot to be found, but I did come across the Rochford Review hypothesis. The national curriculum is not suitable for special educational needs and disability schools as it fails to adequately address the diverse learning needs and abilities of students with disabilities, potentially leading towards exclusion, disengagement, and limited educational outcomes. As you can see from the survey question 1, 100% gave the answer, no, the national curriculum is not suitable for SEND schools. This was also upheld by the answers given in the rest of the survey and the interview questions. Teachers gave many reasons why the national curriculum was not suitable, such as the curriculum was very rigid, pitched too high, and a lack of practical-based qualifications. Based on this evidence, I have come to the conclusion the national curriculum is not suitable for SEND schools. In 2016, the Rochford Review Group was established to review how pupils who are working below the standard of national curriculum assessments are assessed. P scales were introduced in 1998 to sit below level 1 of the old national curriculum because teachers working with children with complex needs found that the national curriculum level descriptors started at too high a level for their pupils. Review group members had a number of discussions about whether P scales use the right language and milestones and whether setting expectations according to comparisons with other schools is the right approach for assessment for all pupils we send. P scales presume linear progression. They presume that pupils will move on from one skill or concept to a more challenging or advanced skill or concept in a linear fashion. Whilst this is an appropriate assumption for most pupils, it does not acknowledge that for pupils with severe or profound and multi-learning difficulties, progress can often look very different. The data from the survey carried out by the Rochford Review showed mixed views about P-scales. The majority, 78% of respondents, felt that P-scales are not fit for purpose in its current form. Over 60% of parents and carers who responded did not think P-scales provided useful information about their children. This research project investigates the compatibility of the national curriculum with the unique learning needs of students we send. Speaking to those that teach the national curriculum and assessment, my findings reveal significant gaps and inadequacies that hinder the effective education of students we send. The research advocates for targeted curriculum adjustments and inclusive pedagogical strategies to better cater the diverse needs of the students. So what can be done about it? So we need to speak to our educational authorities, school administrators and policymakers about adapting the national curriculum to be more inclusive for students we send and complex needs. Get support from parents, community members, discussions, workshops to build a broader understanding of the challenges faced by students we send. Connect with organisations dedicated to support individuals we send. Collaborate on initiatives that aim to influence educational policies and practices. I know in the future that I will be passing my ideas on to SLT governors and our local authorities so that we can get the national curriculum up to date with the new needs of our complex needs students.